everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I'm Rich.
I was almost going to change the start of the podcast there because I did a profile for the Apologetic Nerd on Instagram the other week, and I'd sort of said we're a somewhat retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. So I'm putting this to the vote now between us to say that maybe we should say that, because that actually probably does more accurately describe our podcast than not. So we're not just a retro gaming podcast, we're a somewhat retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. I don't know, you're better at English than me. How's that feel?
I'm already lost. What do we normally say?
Just say that, hi everybody, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs.
Somewhat retro gaming podcast for some of your...
I'm thinking 171 episodes in is the time to rebrand with one really meaningless word.
I mean, if you do the heavy lifting on the intros, you fill your boots, and
Well, maybe we change that too. Maybe
I'm somewhat agnostic.
Yeah, there we go. And I think that's definitely solved it. I think we're going to go for it now.
Right.
Motion carried.
Cool. Should have bought a gavel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't bring a gavel.
Thank you for sacrificing some of your minutes listening there.
My soul.
Yeah, thank you for sacrificing some of your soul there, dear listener, and also dear Rich. That's a relevant segue to
isn't it?
Not the 1969 instrumental song from Santana at Woodstock, but the 2013 PS Vita vehicle that you were going to be talking about this evening.
Yep.
So then to end the segue, I'm going to be talking about something called Kamikaze Lassplanes later on. So
nice.
Yes, but let's stick with the segue. PS Vita 2013 in the slot, in the the hype bracket for that handheld console. The handheld console that now gives you terrible finger pain.
Yes, it does. There's a right number on my thumbs.
Yeah. So you've not been on it for a few months.
Nope.
How did it feel going back to it and this adventure?
My thumbs hurt. Yep.
Sacrificing your thumbs.
Yep. Soul sacrifice. It's Goth Monster Hunter. 7 out of 10. Over to you.
Yes, excellent. Done. Thank you very much, everyone.
So yeah, it is genuinely it is basically.
No, I am being
like that wasn't really a joke. It structurally it is very similar to Monster Hunter. You've got a lot of quests to pick up, kind of short little missions where you're dropped on a map. You've got either a number of small things to kill or a big thing. Off you go. There are some key differences, though, in how it's all kind of stitched together.
Okay.
So, interestingly, though, the guy that came up with the kind of concept for it was a long-term, or is, can't remember, a long-term Capcom employee.
Okay.
So, possibly in the proximity of some early days Monster Hunter stuff there. And the idea is that you are a sorcerer who has been imprisoned, and you have a particularly gobby book in your cell with you.
Handily enough.
Handily enough. On the main menu, you can go fight the big bad whenever you like.
Oh, okay.
It probably won't go well.
No.
But you have the option. Or you can sit and, read this. Oh, I mean, not only sit and read this book, you can also squash cockroaches, and it's all first person and gyro and stuff like that until you actually open the book. So it feels like it's kind of going for a bit of immersion there, and it's got a pretty what's the phrase I'm looking for here? It's not like a how am I trying to put this? It's kind of like a endearingly grim kind of atmosphere to it.
Okay.
So it's like, how Dark Souls, Bloodborne, all that kind of stuff will have a certain tone, but try to instill this sense of foreboding in you.
Yeah.
You're reading this book that's got some like dark shit in it, and some someone's descent into madness, basically. And yet, because you've got like this book's kind of mouthy, literally, I guess, and all this kind of stuff. Like the tone always sort of feels like it's never quite as like brutally dark as perhaps it could be.
So are you reading the book, or is the book
reading
itself to you to that.
You can chat to the book.
Okay,
you can chat to the book. The book's got a personality.
Yes.
And occasionally, like if you're going to save the game when it's not giving you the prompt between quests, you sort of quit out to the sort of main menu, and he'll occasionally say about, have you checked for drops recently? And you're like wiping little beads of this substance from its face / front cover. And that substance is also what you use to like recharge some of your powers later on and bring allies back, because you're rewriting the book. So all of the quests and all of the story stuff is in the book. It's somebody else's journal that you're reading and kind of piecing together as you're following their journey. Like pages will unscramble and bits will unobscure and reveal themselves. You might have like little branches in sort of subquests and stuff like that, and allies you might pick up on the way might leave because you've made a certain decision, or they might die, and then you have to use this substance to rewrite the book to get them back, and all this kind of stuff. All of your weapons are basically spells of a fashion, so you're either like casting a weapon, or you're firing something, or you're turning into a giant boulder to steamroller stuff. They all have limited uses. If you completely use it up over the course of a mission, we'll call them missions, you have to use that substance to recharge it. Yeah. Similarly, your most powerful attacks that you get when you're really low on health, you have to use that substance to recharge them as well. So you end up in this kind of nice little, maybe not quite a risk reward, but it is a bit of a balancing act. So you want to say, if you want to use your most powerful attacks, you want to have your health whittled down, but not so far that you get completely killed while you're waiting to cast it, because you have to hold buttons down and stuff like that. Or you want to use your spells a lot to do damage, but not so much that you have to recharge them afterwards, because if you don't completely tap them out, they'll recharge a bit between missions anyway. Yeah. So like it's the resource management side of things is actually pretty complicated, is what I'm getting at, and it applies to while you're on a mission, while you're between missions, and while you're even just going into the game and stuff like that. So like it permeates everywhere, which is pretty cool. It's pretty clever. Yeah. If you like resource management. Okay. If you don't, I think you might not have as much fun. Okay. When you're in the actual missions themselves, you'll have something, well, if you've set it up, like, so you have the full complement of stuff available to you, you'll have an attack or a healing item or something on square, triangle, and circle. You can press the R button and get another square, triangle, circle. Say you're casting a weapon, you're summoning a giant ice sword, or something like that. I've got it on circle, so you press circle. Yep. You have this big long wind-up animation in which you can have the absolute shit kicked out of you.
It's coming, don't worry, I'm getting it.
If you haven't, and you're still standing, you will get your ice sword, and then all of your attacks will continue to be on that button. So you're either tapping it for a quick attack, or you're holding it for a heavy attack. Yeah. That's it.
All right, okay, so it's
that's your combat option. You can dodge to lesser or greater extents. I've got some real issues with some of the collision detection in this game sometimes, and the cameras are generally fine, but if you're fighting something big, it wigs out pretty badly, and it's quite easy to fail to judge distance if you've got a particularly short range weapon and all this kind of stuff. Like it never seems to quite hang as well as it could, and I find the combat, especially if you're just having to like hammer circle, a bit repetitive and a bit like mashy, basically. And like I get Monster Hunter and its ilk are kind of similar, but at least you're having to think about using more than one button at a time a lot of the time.
Sounds like it's almost you're trying to squeeze too much resource management into the same space you could use those buttons to do for the combat in a game like this.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And it's... I get the impression that like going into a mission is almost like maybe not like an afterthought, but the emphasis was probably more on how the quests and the management of your character and the people they know all kind of hang together. Yeah. But not necessarily on the moment-to-moment combat. Like, if you're talking about what's at the heart of the game, I think it's the stuff with the book and going through. And it's all brilliantly tactile. You're sweeping through pages and everything, like, makes a really satisfying, crunchy page turn noise.
So the Vita stuff
That's all. Like you can,
okay.
you can tap X to go through the pages, which is what I was doing, which probably didn't help my thumb situation. Or you can use the touch screen a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And the way like text is revealed and all that kind of stuff is gloriously deranged. Like it looks like just the book itself looks great.
Okay.
When you're in a mission, it looks less great. It's functional, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of how it looks when you're actually playing it. The sort of the big bit of it, hence the name, is when you do kill something, it will usually end up with a writhing pile of something or a creature on the floor, and you have to choose whether or not you save it or you sacrifice it.
Yeah.
So say some of the early enemies, you might end up with like a pile of rats or a pile of cats or a bird or something like that. Turns out I'm quite happy to sacrifice people, but cats, no. I will not sacrifice a pile of cats. But yeah, like and that kind of ties to the leveling system. So if you're sacrificing something, your magic power will increase and you will become more powerful. Your attacks will do more damage and stuff like that. If you're saving things, your life will go up and you can kind of boost yourself that way. So it starts to become this kind of organic, again, balancing act between what you're saving, what you're sacrificing, and how you are building your character that way, rather than just ploughing points into a menu.
So, is it? Did you play it a certain way? Did you play more sacrificial and more powerful, or did you get more health?
I ended up going pretty balanced. Yeah. The way the narrative is put together does feel like it's trying to steer you a certain way.
Okay.
But it will still respond if you go the other way.
Yeah.
So like there will be, say you beat a big bad in a quest, they might turn out to be a person. And like while you're beating them up in monster form, you might occasionally get flashes of dialogue that kind of give you a bit of an insight into how they've ended up in this situation. Yeah. So you can use that to inform your decision, if you like. And then, in fact, just before we started recording, I had one where I saved the person after I beat them up. But because I was with somebody else who was particularly evil, they ended up leaving the group. Because I had saved someone rather than sacrificing
you were uncool as fuck. They were like, okay,
basically,
I'm done with this now. And saving people.
And like I was saying earlier, that substance you can use to recharge things, that I could use to rewrite the book, quote unquote, to get that character back, so I could use them again in quests and things like that.
That sounds like a pretty interesting mechanic to me.
Yeah, there are some really interesting bits and bobs to it. But it's that moment-to-moment combat.
Yeah, the main driver and action of the game that you spend the most time doing doesn't sound like it's as good as the ideas around it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I kind of fall down on it. Because like there's a lot to like about this game. And like the text, I guess, the prose that you read between various missions and all that kind of stuff, it's engagingly written. It's got this, sense of foreboding to it. It's well narrated. Problem is that, you're reading it because it's all done in very short sentences. Okay. So you're reading it far quicker than the dialogue is going. So you can end up just like mashing your way through it and it pulls you out of it a little bit. But if you're playing it on mute or whatever, then, it's things like that where it just feels like someone had a great idea, and then that kind of execution of it in a couple of places are just like, maybe it's not quite polished. Which is not to say it's broken or anything like that, because it's definitely user error. Like I didn't have to sit there mashing X, but I'm an impatient bugger. And yeah, it's
quite a lengthy game.
Yeah, so How Long to Beat has the average kind of pegged as about 24 hours.
Oh yes,
I did not play 24 hours of this game.
There's not many that kind of get that far. I mean,
that's just the main
Monster
story.
Hunter, for example, is like a long one, isn't it? Like on the PSP, that I always go, oh yeah, I'll play that at some point. I look at it's like 98 hours. I'm like,
exactly. And like, I mean, I was still finding stuff out about this game, as far as an hour ago. So like, I'm sure there is plenty of other fun, interesting little bits and bobs, but at the same time, for me personally, if that combat isn't on point, considering like the main way that I'm going to be engaging with the game is in the combat,
Yeah.
then I almost would have rather had the journal printed out as a book, you know, a snazzy piece of merchandise that I could have gone and bought somewhere and go through that in my own time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's a bit of an odd duck for me. The elephant in the room, if anybody's done any digging into this, is Soul Sacrifice Delta.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, well, I mean, if How Long to Beat has the average for the main story in vanilla Soul Sacrifice at about 24 hours, I think for Delta it's 30.
Okay.
So like it adds a lot of stuff in, and everything I've read says better graphics, more polish on that front, and more quests. So a lot more story context, a lot more stuff going on that front. I've not seen anything to suggest that there was much in the way of changes to combat. That could be wrong. I've not played it.
Yeah.
But like that is the one thing
you think, well,
I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, would have been revised, tweaked a little bit. I can imagine that the way they would have approached it would have been to add in more different spells that you could use, which is not necessarily fixing the problem.
Yeah.
I think. Like I just wanted to have more to do in it, basically. And like there could be how I've set the character up, and there could be something obvious that I'm missing. But I just don't ever feel like I'm bringing anything to the party. There's like the closest thing to a sort of skill check, if you like, that I've had with it is just, am I dodging at the right time?
Yeah.
Which that's not enough.
No,
for
that's
me.
like the basic of Dark Souls, for example. That is in kind of thing. It's like,
yeah,
do you know how to dodge and parry, kind of, etc.
Yeah, but then like you go one step further and go, yeah, but Rich, you like shmups, and that is literally just dodging and holding down the shoot button and stuff like that. But I think you've got scoring mechanics and things like that to consider there. You do have scoring in this for the quests and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And like
I'm back in because I'm like, that's Capcom all over right there.
So, yeah, so like if you do, like, I don't think there's anything like a high score table or anything like that, but you can, for your own gratification, go, oh no, I can do that quicker, or I can do that better, or I can take less damage or whatever. So like, you can approach it that way if you were that way inclined. But like the game does seem to subtly steer, or maybe not even subtly, but it does steer you towards doing a lot of these side quests and stuff like that, because you'll plow through the main story, and then there'll be a point where it's like, oh, okay, I really need to go and, you know, be more powerful or have more life or get different spells. You can fuse all of the spells together and stuff like that to like create new and different combinations of things. Like so much of the resource management side of things has been thought about and just knits so neatly together. It comes to the actual using it in anger that I'm just like, you're so close.
Yeah.
Like you are so close to something here.
So funny that I'm playing a game right now for a free play fortnight in a couple of months' time, I think it is. But like, and that's a similar sort of thing where it's like, oh, the resource management, the ideas are great and stuff, but the action that is sort of like punctures that is, you know, that you could just do a better job of that, and you would have, you know, a brilliant game. And it sounds like this is just sort of on the cusp of that.
I think.
Sorry. No. Sorry.
No, I was going to say like it. The reason I cheerfully said 7 out of 10 at the start is that this fell into a very familiar bracket for me, where I was playing it enough to go like, I can see what you're going for, but I know how, like, were I king of the world and everybody was just accepting my decisions and I could go and make a game and I was making this, I know what I would do differently.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the kind of thing where you're looking at it and going, but if you brought it out on PS3, but if you did a full sequel, or if you, I don't know, there's a lot of like wherefores and what ifs, but like there's so many little tweaks and nips and tucks that you can see. And I don't know if Delta would fix, feels like a strong word, but like fix all of that for me.
From the little amount that I researched this prior to the podcast, was one of the questions I kind of asked was, what's the difference between Sacrifice and Delta? It didn't. I mean, I didn't want to go into it too much because I wanted to hear what you had to say for yourself and stuff. But there didn't seem to be anything that intimated the combat had been overhauled or anything. I found it interesting that this game is still, you know, like as I said, landlocked on the Vita, and but I think at the time of its release, it was almost seen as one of its sort of killer apps or something that could really, you know, take the Vita to the next level. But you just said yourself there, you know, if you put it onto a different system I mean, is it something that you could imagine they could brush up today and bring and take it off there and bring it onto the PS5, for example, and it would be something that would stand up today, or if there was a better combat system, maybe, or
I think if you were going to do it today, it would need to be a Soul Sacrifice 2.
okay.
And I think
Too many souls were sacrificed.
Well,
Too many cats were bothered.
I think there's a lot you could do with it.
Yeah.
As a sort of franchise, an idea, a set of mechanics, however you want to cut it. There's so much potential there, I think.
Okay.
The problem would be like, okay, if you're sitting there on your sofa and the console's at the other end of the room, are you going to have the same kind of feel of closeness to the book? Like you kind of have this, because it's all like it fills the Vita screen, so you get the impression that your character is like properly immersed in it in a very literal sense, face right up against the pages and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To the extent that you have to like literally back out of it to actually close the book and talk to it.
Is
and
that
then
why,
go back in.
Is that like a reason you think maybe that hasn't happened then in terms of
possibly
porting it away from the system?
The way all of the stuff around the book and the menu system and how all of that hangs together makes me think that someone thought about that as a design decision. I think the only way it could have worked better is possibly if it was on the DS or 3DS or something, but that doesn't have the grunt for the rest of it, I guess. Maybe it does. But like, again, were I making this, I would just go down the Monster Hunter route with the combat. So like, you get the weapon out, you have, call it 3 spells rather than 6, just for argument's sake, to slim it down a bit. You press the button, and then after that, you have 2 or 3 attack buttons, and I don't know, call it 2 attack buttons and a special, and your dodge still. That's the dodge is constant. Yeah. But then it's just combinations of square and triangle to do a selection of different combos.
Something different.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's all it needs in my book. Like that is it. Yeah. It's just that extra little step, or like the ability to switch between spells quicker. With this, you've got the big long wind up when you get your spell out. It might turn itself off automatically after a few hits anyway, in which case you then might accidentally recast it, and you're just standing there doing all this big wind up animation, getting hit in the face. Or it's burning a use of the spell that you weren't planning to do, and some of them are quite limited. Okay. Yeah. So I've had ones before now where I've had to go and recharge it after a quest because I accidentally started firing it up and I wasn't planning to, and things like that. You have a button to turn a spell off, but you don't have the ability to switch between them otherwise. Okay. So like it's on, it's off, a different one is on or off. It's not like you can chain together, I don't know, going between weapons in like Devil May Cry or Nier or something like that. I was going to say, like, which sounds like more of that kind of game that you'd get more of. I was just Bayonetta, for example, and stuff. Bayonetta is a good example, actually. Yeah, like I think if you bring in more of that kind of combat, things. Like I would be all over this like a fucking rash. But it's just not the case. And clearly they were going for something a little bit different, something a bit more grounded. I get that, but like it doesn't have to be big and flashy and ridiculous. It just needs to like give me more flexibility. I think when I'm in the flow of trying to deal with an enemy, rather than like it feels quite rigid and quite like stiff sometimes, and that pulls me out of it. Like the menus, the systems work so hard to immerse you, but then as soon as you come to actually wailing on something, it just like there are just one too many little things, and they are only little things. Like there are plenty of other people that would play it and love it. I get that, but for me, like in the year of our Lord 2026, I'm just like, it's not grabbing me. Delta I might get on with, but like I don't want more for more's sake. It's already 24 hours long.
I do think that is what you get. I don't think you get more of what you want. It
sounded to me like it was story DLC, basically, which feels like I'm damning it with faint praise or whatever. But like kudos to them for going back and
being really fair.
But yeah, like this is definitely one of those ones that I would absolutely understand if somebody said, "Oh no, but it is the greatest Vita game of all time." Like for you perhaps, but for me, it is so close to greatness. But yeah, it's a 7 out of 10 all day for me.
Yeah. I'm not sure there's loads and loads and loads of people going so far to the well for it, from what I understand. I think there's a lot of people saying it's probably the best Vita game left on the Vita, if you will.
Well, I mean, even Freedom Wars got a re-release and stuff like that, didn't it?
So... And then when you take like things like Gravity Rush and Tearaway Off and things like that, where you just sort of, they've made the jump. So I can understand why people might say that. From again the limited amount of research that I did, I just kind of had a look at what their average scores were around the time
Yeah.
and things, and a lot of them were sort of like 7s, 8s, and things. There was never 9s and 10s necessarily. So I don't think you've said anything untoward by saying that. And to be honest, it sounds like there's a lot of positive features, and I know there's a few people who'll be listening to this who were eager to hear what this would be like, actually, and to even maybe make the purchase for their Vita, like especially with the Vita shop closing down soon. And so I said I would be really interested to hear what you say sat here as well. And that to me sounds like I'd still want to go away and play it, but there's a caveat of, as long as are you prepared to deal with that combat for so long in that manner?
Yeah, that's it. If you're ready for what I would, again, this feels harsh, but like kind of mediocre combat, but you are happy to sacrifice that in favor of atmosphere and the resource management that kind of hangs together throughout the rest of it so well.
Yeah.
Then I think you'll have a great time. I would say go get Delta if you can, because by all accounts, that's the way to do it. But it is that much easier, at least in the UK, to get the vanilla version. I don't know if it got a physical release in the UK.
I don't think.
I don't think it did.
I don't think Delta did actually.
I did look on the store, like the Vita store and the PS3 store. I couldn't find it now in the UK one, but I could find it on the American one. So if you've got an account set up, then it might be worth a look. Sharpish. Probably already too late actually by the time I've said all this sentence.
When is the shop closing down? I think
I was on it the other day and it just said July. I can't remember specific dates. They have been. Have they been mentioned? Can't remember.
Do you know what? I didn't really clock that. Like, as in, I knew it was closing down, but I'm like, in my head, I was like, it isn't July 2026, but it is. It's very late in July 2026.
Very, very soon. So I rampaged through the store the other day and picked up some pretty fun things that I'm looking forward to talking about at some point.
Oh, nice, good.
I think it's worth playing. If it sounds like it'll scratch an itch, then it's definitely worth looking at. Like, I haven't read anything like it before, in terms of just how it all looks and how everything's animated for the pros.
Yeah,
that's my favorite bit of it. Easily, like I really enjoy it for that. I would happily have just had this like as an ebook.
I wonder if there's like a manga out there or something of it. There must be.
Honestly, surely. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know that.
But yeah, because you do get some of the branching paths and like such and such, you will remember that type moments. So I don't know if it would necessarily translate, but like even if it was just almost like a choose your own adventure ebook, like that would do it for me.
Made, Rich.
yeah. So yeah, 7 out of 10, but like it's very close to an 8.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. It's funny, we just talked about the Vita store and the PS3 store, and I texted you the other day just sort of saying that I'm having some real struggles that my internet broadband provider decided to mesh together the lower frequency and higher frequency broadband they do now. That actually, clearly I hadn't played my Vita since I played Child of Light and Undertale, so maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, and I hadn't played my PS3 since I played the Saboteur again 2 or 3 months ago, and I came to use both, and both the internets, basically the internet didn't work on them, and it was just like, God, like, they really are trying to kill, like, everybody, not just Sony, like, everybody's really trying to stop you playing these fucking things, like, as in things from that era of, let's say, PSP going forward, sort of 2005 to sort of 2000, maybe 15, 16, 17, anything that is internet accessible but not considered a modern piece of kit is like it's becoming more and more difficult to use them in the modern world. And it's really annoying. It's really fucking annoying. Like,
even sorting out passwords and stuff like that.
Nightmare. I mean, I fixed it now, but it took me an hour, maybe even an hour and a half, to like mess around with my modem settings and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, like it's just like everyone's trying to kill off that era of my life that I really enjoyed.
You know what never let me down? A fucking Mega Drive.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
slap a cartridge in, turn it on, and off you go.
Fucking turn the internet on, did the bad bits. So from one lengthy novel with action interspersed in it to another lengthy novel with action interspersed in it. I was working on that for a while. Much more recent, somewhat retro, Kamikaze Lassplanes from 2024. I've been looking forward to talking about this for a while, because we've spoken about quite a few visual novels on the podcast previously. Hatful Boyfriend, Doki Doki Literature Club. I'm trying to think of a couple more, and I think we've done 3 or 4, and then you could even sort of say Ace Attorney, for example, things like that. I've not come across one that had this much gameplay in it, and also not. So this is a visual novel crossed with a shmup. So it's from an indie developer, Inky Dreams. It's the only game they've done so far, and published by Crunching Koalas, who are Polish Polish developers, and the publishers, they seem to. I picked up another couple of games on the back of this from these publishers because I was really, really intrigued and interested in this. And even after playing it, I was as well. Was it perfect? No, it was far from it, and there's reasons for that. But there's a lot of really great ideas in here, and this is one of those games that I kind of went really up and down about how I felt about it. At one point, I was obsessed with the idea of it. Like, as in, after about sort of 75% of my way in, and I started really cool on it, and then got really obsessed, and then kind of ended a bit more cool again. And I was like, oh, like, is it? I don't know. I feel so weird about this. Like, I can't wait to talk about it because at least it made me feel lots of different emotions. Yep. Whether some of them were, that's naff, or actually that was amazing. So, so I would say, just to give a bit of disclaimer, start up front. This is probably about 90% visual novel, 10% shmup if you play the story mode.
Right.
The story mode is about sort of 7, 8, 9 hours long, which if you then think about that percentage, then shmup's probably about an hour worth of gameplay. The rest of it is visual novel. You can imagine that feels quite weighty on the visual novel side of things versus the shmup in that balance there. And we'll come back to that because I want to talk about that in sort of a lot of detail. But the visual novel itself, so it's like, is it ecchi or ecchi? I don't know how you say that necessarily, style. So basically that playful, light-hearted, sexy sort of anime with themes and innuendo, romance, which we've spoken about where, with Hatful Boyfriend, where, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily sexy, but you date, it's a...
Oh, I don't know.
a dating sim for pigeons. So, and this is... I'd say this is a bit more straightforward, but it's not. So I'll tell you, about the story, the setup, because it's really important that that's understood and how this gets a bit weird. So the world is it's a steampunk fantasy kingdom, a little sort of island called Valestia. The kingdom is discovered. It's very vaguely called the Light, which is a magical energy source, basically.
Right.
It gets, let's just imagine, I don't know, materia, like for example in Final Fantasy, so that gets used to create a veil over the kingdom to protect them from outside threats.
Right.
There's an evil empire on the outside who want in and want the light. Luckily, the light is also managed, it's made this wonderful protective veil over the kingdom. It also manages to produce Lassplanes, which is exactly as you... And this is what really probably drew me to the game, I think, in the first place. I think it's a fantastic title for a video game. And if you said to me, there's a video game... Well, someone did say it to me. There's a video game called Kamikaze Lassplanes, and it's a shmup/visual novel. I was like, well, I have to play that. I can't not play that.
Sign me up.
Yeah, so you have these Lassplanes, which are women that magically transform into lethal fighter aircraft that you pilot.
Are we talking like Transformer style, or are we talking like magical pixie girl style?
This is it. You see, so they very much become fighter aircraft, like Spitfires. Like, as in, so they look like aeroplanes. You can still come. So you play as. Luckily, obviously, very handily, you play Walter, who is the best pilot in the kingdom. So,
that's handy.
And you end up partnering with the Lassplanes at just the right time. The main plot and the main driver of it is that it revolves around the relationships you build as Walter with the Lassplanes/women. You make occasional choices about how you interact with them. There are the 2 different Lassplanes. And 2 different women. Effectively, it's very difficult to describe.
This is very much making me think of Lord Flashheart from Blackadder Goes Forth. I just need to say that now.
There are bits that are probably a bit like that, really.
Right, okay.
I would say that Walter is nowhere near as enigmatic in that fact. He's much more of a... So he plays it straight. he's very much just a guy who
Right.
who is very much in awe of meeting these magical aircraft, effectively these famous aircraft that he's going to get to pilot, and they do a good job of making him making it feel a bit like, oh, I didn't expect to become romantically entangled with
My plane.
my plane. I mean, the anime drawings of the women when they are women, you could understand why he would feel that way, because they are drawn that way.
Sure.
There's just two romantic choices effectively let's say effectively there are just two romantic choices. There are 8 different endings to this game.
Right.
So some good and then some bad. It's very much it does take a darker turn later on, and that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give any spoilers away, obviously, but there is more to the world, and not everything's right in Valestia, basically, and that's all you need to kind of know. So it definitely, as a game, very intriguing. They, as an indie developer, they do a great job of making sure it's really accessible as well. So there's 3 different difficulties for the shmup action part of it.
I was going to say for the visual novel.
Well, this is it. Yeah.
How well can you read?
Yeah. There's a story only mode that you can access just to do the visual novel if you want to.
Okay.
And then there is a shmup only arcade mode as well.
Cool.
We'll get onto the shmup part of it towards the end once I've kind of gone through a bit of my feelings about how this is balanced. But you can autoplay the text as well at a pace that suits you, which is very useful. There's good translations. There's plenty of really accessible options. Save points feel like they're all in the right place. It feels like they've really thought about it and made it feel like very usable for the user, which is a terrible sentence. But I'd say that my issue here is, and this is where I kind of have my lows and highs and things, is that the story, the overarch is interesting enough, and at some points I did become really, really invested in it. But the balance of it's just so far off that what I expected and wanted it to be. To have that sort of almost 9 hours worth of visual novel story, and I'd say most of it is Walter's internal thoughts about how he feels about these partners he's working with, and I'd say even go to the extent where there's probably not enough romance or not enough emotion or feeling from that point of view in the writing to kind of feel like it excites you enough or thrills you enough or gives you. There's just a lot of descriptive writing that I feel like they could have cut a significant amount out, and it really stunted the flow of the visual novel for the game. I mean, at one point, this sounds really damning, and it's not meant to, but I'd rather be honest about it. I fell asleep at one point, and then I woke up about 20 minutes later, and I don't think I missed anything. The amount that you interacted with the visual novel was that much.
Yeah.
I was sat there writing my notes at one point whilst I was doing the visual novel and just looking up and kind of going, oh, yeah. And that is, there was just too long a period of time between either making a decision that impacted the story and effectively sent you down one of these 8 paths, or getting to an action point with the shmup. That was really disappointing for me, because it was they had me. The story's pretty good, and yes, of course it's fantastical, and it can get a little bit silly, and there are points where you kind of go, oh yeah, ha 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 ha, I'm just laughing at this, the jolly jaunt or whatever, and then it goes, oh, actually this got they got quite dark, and there's interesting themes happening here. There's a one particular very famous manga that is being converted into a movie and things like that, where actually it's very similar to that in theme. I don't want to, but it would be a spoiler if I give that away, but people might be able to put two together. And I'm like, oh, actually, you can see where the developers have done a really good job of mashing together lots of different ideas and bringing in ideas, but it's just been sagged and sapped by that pace of that visual novel.
Is that I wonder, because it's a debut kind of a game, is that just a lack of editing? And if you had an actual novel editor, someone that's used to bigger form prose or whatever, to just nip and tuck it. I don't think
it necessarily sounds. It's nothing like the same game like Unbeatable that you reviewed, but almost I remember you saying they just needed a bit it needs somebody to maybe cast their eye over it and nip and tuck a bit off and things. And if I think about Doki Doki Literature Club, for example, that is in that it probably probably it is not as strongly themed, I wouldn't say, as that, but I'd say that emotionally got more done in half the time that this did.
Yeah, just written a bit tighter.
Yes, yeah, and yet you still had the same. It was still the romantic themes of, and it's still the same way. And actually, that didn't have any of the shmup elements in it, and it still managed to kind of keep me more thrilled necessarily during the whole of this. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing I can do to represent this was almost like, you know, you get those like little impactful moments in Final Fantasy VII where you kind of get the love triangle between Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith, and you feel like actually, I'm thinking back to, is it Calm, the village near the start, where I think Cloud's giving his backstory about Sephiroth and things like that, and that lasts quite a long period of time, like certainly for a video game PS1 era, for example, but that felt right, whereas this just felt off. That is in the amount of time spent, and it was almost like you didn't feel the impact you got with that love triangle, for example, as you do with this one. It never really, it never coalesces into something where you kind of start to feel drawn a certain way or pulled a certain way. The options that I picked were probably just a bit like, you know, well, that person maybe that isn't just, I don't really know why. I'm just kind of picking that.
A little bit arbitrary.
Yeah, I'm picking that last plane because whilst you can also pick them for who they are as a character in the novel, you can also pick them for the attributes they have whilst you're flying them, the shmup as well, which is something.
That's kind of cool.
But I would say that there's very little difference necessarily between how they act in the shmup as well. That is, and you probably kind of go, you could just flip a coin and pick who you wanted here, I think. It does matter when you come down to those 8 different endings, and, you know, and there's some stuff, I mean, but it just, I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's going to make me sound like an awful man, but it's not meant to, but it's almost like those moments where, you know, they sort of say men are, women are for Venus, men are for Mars and things like that. There's a lot of times where you're kind of listening to, you know, one of your partners speak, and then Walter's just sat there, and then he just starts drifting off into sort of his own thoughts for ages and ages and ages, and you're just a bit like, dude, just shut the fuck up and just like act upon your feelings towards this person. That is, you know, because it would be better for the user, I think, if we just kind of like, you know, all cut to the chase a bit more. I mean, but then there's like detail like, and that's how a sack of boiled chicken taught a cat how to swim.
Sure.
Yeah, it just too much. So let's talk about the shmup gameplay, because that's what we're all here for. You know, the men only want one thing, and that's shmup gameplay. That's it. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. It is not. We're not talking levels of Batsugun, for example, and Dodo Apache. That is in. We're talking something that actually I percolated a thought today. It's a bit more on the level of which I didn't give necessarily a great score to, but it was still a good shmup, just not one of the greats. It was like sort of like Raiden 5, for example. Like it still operates as a really good shmup, and I would say this operates at that kind of level.
Okay.
It's a side-scrolling one. It's not a one-hit kill. You have a health bar, so basically, and I think that helps because you want to complete the shmup because you want to see the story. So you have to be able to do the shmup, that is, to get to the actual finish line of each part. Each chapter is punctuated by a shmup part of gameplay. It probably lasts about 10 minutes, I'd say. And they telling story while you're sat on your last plane, you're still conversing with them through the radio. I don't know how that works. And it kind of like is filling out a little bit more of the story. And it's good because it kind of just sort of goes in little waves, almost gives you that wave of here's an attack, and then here's a different type of attack and a different type of enemy. And it builds up as well. It becomes a bit more difficult. I wouldn't say during the story mode, the shmup parts feel like they are really difficult to do on the normal setting. Like I think maybe only once in the last sort of shmup did I feel like I was like really under pressure, and I think like I had to redo it once. Apart from that, it was almost like it wasn't super passive, but you could sense how it was definitely, if you want to see the rest of the story, we are being passive on normal mode. I wouldn't recommend just going for the story only mode in this. I think that it adds to it. So I think it's meant to be experienced in that way.
Yeah.
There's lots of different sort of options that bounce around the screen, which is really cool, like different power-ups and things. So like once you kill an enemy, some of the power-ups bounce around the screen, some of them pass and you have to catch them before they get through the end of the screen, so you've got to be careful with that. you can pick and choose when you pick up those power-ups. So it might be that you don't want to use a bomb yet, so therefore let it bounce around the screen and then pick it up when you know you're in trouble, kind of thing. It was really clever in that way. I've seen shmups use that before, and I think this did it really, really well. It was really responsive. I thought it was really well balanced as a shmup as well. Like I said, it just wasn't necessarily super challenged when you're playing it in the story. When I played the arcade only mode, I didn't 1cc it, so there is challenge there, and it does last a long period of time. I'd say, I was playing that for at least 25 minutes, and I was still, significant enough off the end to feel like, yeah. Would you then say to yourself, this is a shmup you could play by itself? Is something that I was thinking about. I think you could. I think you genuinely could, and actually think of it, you could almost separate the novel out and the shmup out and find a game enough there. Maybe a £5 game from the Nintendo eShop you might not have heard before, but certainly I was like, oh yeah, this is
there's something there.
Yeah, palatable enough. Yeah,
nice.
So yeah, I was really pleased with that, to be honest. I think that so when I come to kind of think about a final verdict for it, it's funny because there's some really great bits to it, and the story does kind of really kick in later on, but it is a lot later on. There's one ending. I think it's probably an ending where I found an ending probably about 5 hours in out of the 10 hours, sort of, and I was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. That was the wrong option I just picked there. So I think most of the rest of them kind of can finish up sort of 7, 8 hours. I finished it with is it a neutral good ending? I think it was, and it felt like a nice ending to the story. And did I feel compelled? Will I feel compelled to go back and find the other endings? Absolutely not. No, that is I'm not fussed about going back in, which is interesting because this is an indie game. It's quite difficult to find out what the other endings are if you just kind of go, oh, here's the write-up on Steam or whatever, for example. So, if I do want to find them out, I probably do have to go back in, but I'm not that fussed.
Does it do any for like the visual novel / like normal story side of things? Like I know Hatful Boyfriend or like Virtue's Last Reward and stuff like that. Would give you points where you can jump in to get to a decision point and branch off and kind of explore like that without having to sit through the entire thing again.
Yes.
Does it let you do that?
Well, this is what I found really interesting. So when I was researching the game, I went on the shmup subreddit, and the developer was in there asking for active feedback to say, we're wanting to put this feature into the game. Do you think this is something we should do? Now, disappointingly, a lot of people were like, oh, this guy's just trying to sell his game. And he might well have been, but at the same time, I saw it as a point of, he's asking for feedback whether you should do that. Yeah. So I was responding 2.5 years later, but I was like, yes, absolutely. This is like, and this is what I mean about them doing a good job of making it accessible, because they have included that in there. I found it, I did try and do that after I'd finished the story, and I think it was user error. I wasn't doing it did seem to suggest that was existed as an option. Like it'd come up as an option afterwards, but I couldn't seem to get it to work to make it go faster to certain points. But I think it does exist, and it probably does work. I think I was just fumbling about a bit, to be honest, and I probably should have looked into it a bit more, really. So again, I think that the overall package, I think they've really thought about the user, and that's great. And I think this is so difficult for me to score, because at some points I was like, oh yeah, this is like an 8 sort of kind of thing, and at some points I was like, this is like a 3, I was like, and I was just like, oh god, and it's definitely not I would recommend people to go away and play this game. I do, but I think as an overall package, if I think about it, like you're meant to enjoy it as a visual novel cross shmup. 2 elements are actually pretty good. The shmup certainly is really good. If not the higher end of what a shmup should be, and the visual novel, the overarching story's really good, but putting them together and then balancing them out in the way that they did with that 90-10 split, really, it just didn't sit well with me. And I kind of got to the end of it, and I was thinking about it for days. I was like, I'm really obsessed with this game. I like the idea of it and stuff, but I think I'm obsessed with the idea of it rather than the actual thing itself.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And it's almost like I really, from the interaction that I saw with the developer, on subreddit, there's probably a good chance that if I tag him on Instagram, he might even listen to this. And if you do, I want him to know that he's done an absolutely fantastic job of making a debut game. I think there's just a lot of polishing to do there. So yeah, it's a recommendation from me, but I'm going to say 5 out of 10, which it always sounds damning when we say that on the podcast, but I think that it's the right side of a game that you should go and play. But I think there's something there that he could have just done some real trimming and making it feel a lot more sort of pointed and taking some real time to, I don't know, hone it in, basically.
I tend to find nowadays that 5, 6, and 7 is that spot where I'm like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
I know what you're going for.
Yeah.
But I know what I would do different.
Yeah.
So I think that's valid. What I'm curious about, in a hypothetical world,
is it the cat and the boiled chicken?
No, funnily no. No, what I was thinking was, you were saying about, if you tag the developer and if they listen and all that kind of stuff. If they turn around and say, well, I am working on something, do you fancy having a quick look like at an early build and giving some feedback? Is that the kind of thing that you would be like, yes, like sign me up? Or are you sufficiently like distanced from this emotionally now that it's like, you know what, I'm good, I'm out, I don't need a Kamikaze Lassplanes 2 or a Lassplanes 0 or whatever. Like,
I think I answered that question earlier on by saying that I've gone to find other games by this publisher, for example, that felt like, and I actively went to it afterwards because, like I say, it's so difficult, and this is where we come back to that number and distilling, what it actually means and things.
Yeah,
this is so intriguing to me, and it still kind of is, and therefore, I probably would do. If we were ever sort out and sort of, do you want to try this out or give me feedback on this? I'm probably at that point in my gaming life now where I'm prepared to do that and happy. I feel like I've played enough video games in the last even just sort of like 3 years, for example, doing the podcast, nearly 4 years now, and it's almost like to feel like I would be in a position to be able to critically cast an eye over something, certainly with a shmup element or a visual novel element, because I feel like we've played quite a lot of those, and also be interested enough to sort of say, that's like, if I can give you one nugget, that is, then that would be, I'd feel happy that I'd done that. So I would do. Yeah,
definitely means there's something to the idea then.
Yeah, good question. So, that was really good. Talking about a couple of book games in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we will speak to you again real soon.
Cheers.